Hi, this is Michael Orl of MobileBurn.com, and this is the Sony Xperia S, the first member of Sony's next series of Android-powered smartphones. A special thanks to Negri Electronics for supplying us with the phone used in this review.
So here we have the Sony Xperia S. Power up the display with the power button right here. Unlock it with a swipe. It's a 4.3-inch display across the diagonal, 720p resolution, so that's 720 pixels by 1280 pixels. Down here at the bottom we've got three different controls, these little dots here. I'll move in a little bit closer and you can perhaps see them in the clear section here if I put my finger behind it. It's back, home, and menu. There's no dedicated search button. And in spite of the fact that the labels are here in the clear section of the body, you actually have to tap where the dots are. And that can be a little confusing at first, but you do get used to it. I do have to mention, though, that the dots don't seem to be as sensitive or usable as I would have hoped for. A couple of times, through any kind of normal session, I'll tap on something and not get the response I'm expecting. In any case, you can see that clear section there. It's really quite slick. Can't tell in the video here, I'm sure, but there's actually a very fine mesh grid of wires going through there because the antenna is down here in the bottom piece of the device. It's pretty cool. Take a look at the rest of the hardware design. Relatively thin device. It's about 10.6 millimeters thick. You see we've got a covered micro USB slot here. It's a little finicky though, the cover, a bit of a pain. Device weighs about 144 grams, which is not too bad. Up top, the power button and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And on the right-hand edge, there's a covered micro HDMI port, volume control, and then a dedicated camera shutter button. And the cool thing with the camera shutter button is it can be used to activate it. Even when the phone's already locked, it'll activate the camera. You can even have it set up so as it will activate and take a picture immediately. And again, you see the clear section of the device here. Nothing too much on the bottom except for a speaker port and a microphone pinhole. Take a look at the back. And there's where we have the main 12 megapixel camera, 12.1 megapixel. Nice bright LED flash, another speaker port, and presumably another microphone, secondary microphone. The rear cover, though, I'm not real pleased with it. Take a close look up at the top. You can see it doesn't always seem to fit real tightly. It's very simple to take off, but it's quite flimsy, and it just doesn't really suit me in terms of build quality. Just the gap's too big. It just doesn't feel as rich as it ought to. Apart from that, though, the white's pretty cool looking. A little bit of a yellow tint to it compared to some other white devices. And you might be able to see the lighting in the clear section here, which comes on occasionally when the phone's activated. It's pretty neat. In addition to my concerns with the quality of the rear cover, I have some issues with the display as well. One of them is the viewing angle. While the device looks really good, the display looks really good straight on, whether it's basically darks or whites. When you get at an angle, it's a little hard to see here, but dark images really look poor. The viewing quality takes a real hit when you're off center, and you don't have to be too far off center. I'm just making it a little more extreme here, so you might have a chance of seeing it in video. But it's been noticed by most of the people that I've showed the device to, and I find this to be a little bit odd for something carrying the Sony brand, Sony being known for displays, and this device claiming to have Bravia technology, which should be improving things. I just haven't really found it to be up to par with other 720p displays. On top of that, the speaker port here, I'm going to pull in a little bit tighter. There's a real lip to it, and every time you drag your finger, say to get to the notification area, which is something you do quite often on an Android device, your thumb catches on that, or your index finger catches on that, and it just really feels cheap. It's a, I'm not going to say it's going to cut you. It's not that sharp, but it's a rough edge of glass, and it reminded me immediately of the speaker ports on the HP touchpad. It just really doesn't lend itself to a feeling of quality or class. And while I don't want to harp on the display, I've also found the glass front of the Xperia S to pick up lint and smudges more than most other devices. Underneath the hood on the Xperia S, which is available in white you see here as well as black, you've got a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor with 1 gig of RAM backing it up, 32 gigs of internal storage available. Battery is 1750 milliamp hours in size, which Sony says is good for 7.5 hours of talk time or up to 17.5 days of standby time. In terms of connectivity, in addition to the HSPA data support that we're using here on the AT&T's network, there's also Wi-Fi, of course, Bluetooth as well. NFC is built in, so you can actually read NFC tags. DLNA support, if you want to use a Wi-Fi connection to output video to your DLNA compatible TV or other media device. And of course, you also have access to the HDMI port that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's take a look at the home screens on the Xperia S here. One of the things right off the bat that I really like is when you do a pinch gesture, instead of showing you thumbnails of the displays, it actually just shows you all the available widgets. Basically, you can just tap on the widget and you know what you want to do. For example, I don't know what screen it's on, but if I wanted to get to music and videos, I just tap on that widget and it takes me to the appropriate screen. I think that's a really good way of representing things because it actually bases it on functionality rather than some arbitrary position of a home screen. On top of that, you've already seen the notification area. There's not too much going on there. There's no shortcuts or anything like that. Sony has put in a bunch of really cool widgets, though. A lot of them are animated. You can see like this power control one here. It actually flips around. It gives you a larger screen view of it, and then you just tap outside of it to close it. It's the main menu. Horizontally sliding paged view. No real options here. We do have themes though, as you might have noticed. So right now we're in the standard Sapphire theme. Actually, let me quickly jump into settings just so you can see some of the things that changes. Notice this is a gray background here. And I'm going to flip the theme over to something a little different. I'll pick the emerald one. Okay, not only does it change the background, but when I go into an application such as settings, you'll see that it's now green. The font changes on some of the highlighted things as well as some of the icons. Take a look down here at the bottom of the display. You'll see that you have the ability to change the icons that are on the bottom of the screen here, which is pretty convenient. Also notice that you can put folders in there. Folders open up, you just tap outside of them to close them. And it's easy enough to make folders just by dragging one thing onto another, and we'll call it new. And there it is, there's a new folder. And I could place that back down there if I wanted. So I want to show you some of the wallpapers that Sony includes. There's a lot of variations of this one right here in different colors. But I think the wallpaper that shows off the display best is this one. It has bright colors and a white background, and it just really looks fantastic. It's quite bright though. I'm going to switch wallpapers once again, and let's just take a look at some of the widgets I have on the home screen. So this is some of the integration with Facebook and Twitter. You can see listing right here some of the friends that have the most recent updates. There's my friend Dean Sabatino of the Dead Milkmen. You can see some recent updates from Dean. Tap outside. Here are other things that have come across. Now this hasn't been updated, so if I hit update here, you'll see these things change. Right now I'm using this on AT&T's network. It has an HSPA connection. It's been quite slow though. This seems to be the local network though. All my AT&T devices have been performing pretty poorly as of late. This is the European spec version of the device. Sony will be selling a US tuned version later this summer. Move on to the next one here. You can see here's some local weather and some help from Sony. A long press on these two widgets and clear them out just so I can install a couple of my own. Long press again. This is what you have access to. Go into widgets. Some of these are from applications I've installed like Google Voice, but others come pre-installed. You can see Timescape, which is Sony's, formerly Sony Ericsson's version of social networking. For example, we can put a timescape share, so I could type something in here and then send it out to multiple services. Now let's take a look at what weather widgets we have. Maybe get something a little bit larger here. There we go. And now I have local weather.